Hello all. In this video, we'll be seeing about traditional IT infrastructure and the challenges which the traditional IT infrastructure is facing. And then we will be introducing the cloud computing. So in this series of videos, we'll be seeing about the cloud computing and service providers such as Amazon's web service in detail. So first we will move into the traditional IT infrastructure. So since it is a traditional IT infrastructure, like they don't have any virtual kind of thing, all the things will be deployed physically. So you can see like they will be having an on-premises data centers and physical servers. And for those physical servers, dedicated networking will be carried out. And since like where would we store the data if we are deploying the servers physically, so we have to take care of the storage infrastructure and storage mechanisms as well. And then comes the software licensing since we are deploying it physically on our premises. So we'll see these kinds of thing one by one. So first coming to the on-premises data centers. So like before cloud computing has been into picture, the organizations will like typically manage their own data centers and server rooms on their premises itself. So like these data centers are like housed and physical servers, networking equipment, storage devices, and other hardwares. So these are all the things which the data center will include. So, moving into the physical server, the organization would purchase and maintain the physical server to run their applications and store the data. So, since before the cloud computing has introduced, when you have to run a project, even for a short period of time or a short duration, you have to deploy your own physical server on your premises to run your applications and store the data. And then you have to maintain the server also. Before, like even buying is not that much costly, maintaining the server is more costly. So you have to maintain and you have to upgrade it and even replace it when they get aged. And then comes the dedicated networking. Since you are going to deploy the physical servers on your premises, you have to have a dedicated networking line for that. So setting up and managing the networking infrastructure, like including the routers, switches, firewalls, all the components which a networking will include. So it requires a significant time and expertise, and also expanding or reconfiguring the network was an often a complex and time consuming process. So this is about networking. And when you come to storage infrastructure, since you have to safeguard your data, so storage infrastructure like these storage devices such as hard drives and storage area networks were used to store the data. And managing storage capacity, backups, and data recovery was also constant concern. And then comes software licensing. These are all the things you will have to do. And when it comes to the physical servers which you are deploying it in, on your premises, and you're taking care of the the storage infrastructure of that network and dedicated networking which you carried out, so you have to have licensing for that also. So organizations had to purchase the software licenses for each and every applications they use, and often with the complex pricing models. And managing these software licensing and the compliance was a significant administrative overhead. So this is about the traditional IT infrastructure. Now let's see what are the challenges they face. So first challenge is the scalability. So when more number of users are heading towards your thing, like you have to scale up or scale down accordingly. So scaling up is you're just going to add more number of compute resources, like it may be CPU server or that kind of thing. And you have to scale up or scale down in the traditional infrastructure. And it was a like slow and costly process because organizations had to purchase a new hardware and provision the resources accordingly, like which often led to an over provisioning. Or if they like have more number of resources and less number of users head towards them, it will be an underutilization for them. So this is about scalability. And when it comes to cost, the capital expenses for hardware and infrastructure which you are going to lay, which you are going to deploy on your premises, were also very high. So when you see in the cloud computing, we only pay for what we use and use for what we pay. So this is not in the case of traditional infrastructure, like you have to pay even though you're not using it. So organizations had to budget for the servers and networking equipments and also the data center facilities. So operational costs including the electricity, cooling mechanisms, and also maintenance were very high in the traditional infrastructure. And then comes the complexity. So managing a data center required skilled IT personnel, because when you have to maintain it in a physical, the physical servers which are laid in your premises, they are all to be maintained by the people like system administrators, network engineers, and security experts. So complexity increased as the infrastructure grew. And then comes the downtime and redundancy. So in like we have to duplicate the hardware and have a redundant data centers to come back from the disaster if we encounter any disaster. So we have to ensure there is high availability and disaster recovery mechanisms which we have followed. So for that we have to have the duplicate hardware and redundant data centers, and also complex failover mechanisms should be there for our resources. And then comes power and cooling. Since the data center consume a significant amount of electricity, there will be power consumption. And when there is power consumption, like the servers which are operating will also generate heat. For that also we need to have a cooling mechanism. So thus we should have an efficient power management and power consumption mechanisms, and also cooling mechanisms should be employed. And then comes security. Organizations were responsible for their own security, like for securing their own infrastructure, because these things are going to be laid on our premises. There should be a physical security and firewalls, and also intrusion reduction systems and compliance. So this should ensure there is a confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and authorization before anybody without the access or roles should not access the resources which are present in our premises. So this should be there with the data protection regulations. And then comes resource utilization. Traditional IT infrastructure often suffered from underutilized resources, as the servers and infrastructures were provisioned for peak loads. They will have the peak loads, and they will just design it and like bring the servers and infrastructures for that kind of thing. And when less number of users are using it or heading towards it, like like there will be an underutilization encountered there. So this results in wastage of like wasted capacity during off peak times. And then comes the last challenge, which is the geographical constraints. Expanding IT infrastructure to multiple locations or accommodating remote works was challenging and costly, because you have to, whenever you shift from one place to another, you have to follow all these things again, like the physical servers should be deployed and the dedicated networking should be there, and then storage infrastructure should also be there. So these are the challenges which are faced. I hope like you got some insights about this. So I'll just again give an overview of this. So traditional IT infrastructure need physical servers and on-premises data centers, and then dedicated networking should be there, software infrastructure, and then software licensing should be there. So when these are the things should be there, there will be challenges. Challenges are the scalability, cost, complexity, power and cooling, and then downtime and redundancy in the case of disaster recovery, and then comes security, resource utilization, and geographical constraints. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you.